leaders around the world, not really in the US, but around the world, are using the coronavirus as an excuse to increase their power and scrap democracy, just like the tinfoil hat I said they would. So the biggest example, Hungary. Hungary's parliament just gave its leader, Viktor Orban, the ability to basically pass laws unilaterally, an ability that has no expiration date, is not legally tied in any way to the resolution of the crisis, and is already being used to pass laws that Mr. Orban just happened to want that have nothing to do with coronavirus. For instance, last week he declared gender transition illegal in Hungary, because that was the squeaky wheel in post-coronavirus Hungary. That's what needed changing. He also unilaterally passed reforms to the school system so that Hungarians can be, quote, proud of their history, which in this case means that history books will now be required to cover their Nazi involvement in World War II in a more positive light. In Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, who, if you don't follow Israeli politics, you probably don't know, has been very unpopular with a large segment of the population, and has also been under investigation for taking bribes and just general corruption, has just so happened to decide that the courts need to be shut down for coronavirus reasons right before his trial was slated to begin. Also, this happened at a time when the courts were getting involved over a disputed election and were expected to give power to his opponents. Now they're shut down. Leaders in Jordan, Thailand, and the Philippines have given themselves the ability to basically censor any media they don't like. The interim president in Bolivia postponed their elections indefinitely. The UK is trying to give massive new powers to border agents and police. So, and of course, many, many countries, too many to list now, are trying to expand the surveillance capabilities to, frankly, a rather alarming degree. So these are just some of the many examples of what's happening right now in a lot of countries that don't have the same checks and balances that we do, and even in some that do. I mean, Israel is generally known as a fully functional democracy, same for Hungary, at least until Orban got into power. Back to you, Chauncey.
Okay, I think my first question is, what's the leader of the Philippines' name again?
Rodrigo Duterte.
Okay,
so he's been in the news
not the
a bunch
one.
of times for being a crazy person. But
yeah, well, there's one of them who's in the news for doing this, and I forget what country, but his last name is like the entire alphabet. It's like just insane. So I was trying to set you up. I was trying to set you up. Well, he was in the news about a year ago because the conspiracy theory was that he was dead, and he came out to show that he was alive by driving Brodies around a fire pit. And I don't know. We'll have to get the video up there. It is over the top. He also sings in a band with his son. Some of these dictators are just insane. Like you started out there talking about Turkey and, of course, gender transition.
Hungary. Yeah, not Turkey.
Turkey,
we all know, is fully on the dictatorship train now.
Right. Sorry. Turkey makes me think of Hungary.
That is fair.
The gender transition, I mean, what does that have to do with anything? I mean, are
Absolutely nothing.
Are they postponing all elective surgeries? I mean, that might make sense, but if it has anything to do with gender transition specifically, that is absolutely... No,
it's just a very conservative country, and he runs a far-right party, and now he has the power to rule by decree, so that's exactly what he's doing.
Right. Which you very much illustrated afterwards by saying that they were putting Nazis in a more positive light.
Yeah, because they don't want the World War II section of history books to be a downer or anything for the Hungarian kids.
Right, because if anybody knows anything, it's that over the past 60 years, 70 years, 80 years, the Nazis, man, they really got a bad rap.
Yeah.
That's like sign number one of dictatorship. We're going to go easy on the Nazis. Be all, somebody needs to shoot that guy.
Oh, gosh. Well, now Radio Wasteland is going to be censored in Turkey. Hungary. Gosh darn it, Hungary. Yeah. Why am I beating up on Turkey and ascribing all... The thing about Hungary, though, is, it's a member of NATO.
Right.
you know, it it is a perfectly functional state, or at least it was until right now.
Now, in this case, did they elect to give him these rights in the case of Hungary?
Well, so it's more of like a parliamentary system. So the executive is not separate from the Congress, like it is here. So rather, the executive is just sort of the leader of the Congress, like in, say, Britain, where the prime minister is just, the sort of the party leader. So yes, his party elected to give him these powers, and presumably the reason, because they have a majority control of the parliament right now,
right?
And presumably all the other party officials are fine with this, because they know that, maybe one day they'll be the chief bigwig of this particular party. And
right.
They'll be the ones with the unlimited dictatorial power. So,
when this was first going on, I saw it as an opportunity for Donald Trump to go down as one of the greatest presidents in history.
Yeah, back in January, maybe.
And we find out, no, even now he could. And because our two greatest presidents in the history of the United States are considered the greatest presidents for the exact same reason. Both George Washington and Abraham Lincoln had the opportunity. George Washington had the opportunity to seize absolute power, and he turned it down. Abraham Lincoln did seize absolute power, but still allowed elections to go on and then return the power to people after the war. That's why both of those guys are considered so great, because they're holding up these ideals. And so I thought, if Trump's smart about this, he could go down in history as the guy who gave power back. But I don't see it happening. But
I don't know that Congress is actually exactly champing at the bit to give Trump any more power.
Yeah. And then Israel, I'm always a little confused by Israel, because they're one of our closest allies, yet they're in a potential dictator situation. I don't understand how we are.
I think calling it a dictator situation is overstated.
Well, he shut down the courts before his own trial. I mean, it's weird.
I guess it's not overstating it by that much.
Yeah, I mean, it is a step towards that potential.
That is why this is so alarming. So basically, to go into a little more detail, what happened was that there was an election, and basically the opposition party won, but the results of the election were contested. It was sort of a Florida 2000 type of situation. So the courts basically said, okay, this opposition guy won. Now he has to create a coalition government in, the deliberative body. I forget what it's called. And they were expected to, make more rulings on that and enforce it more. But now Netanyahu is saying that the courts can't meet because, no gatherings.
Yeah, that's
I don't exactly know what's going to happen. And if you look at newspapers from that country, like people are scared and freaked out, rightfully so, because this is kind of an unprecedented place. Not that I'm an expert in Israeli politics or anything. I don't want to try to get that impression.
No, I get you. And actually, this has been an issue for me over the years, because I'm interested, especially here on Radio Wasteland. We have the opportunity, the platform to get somebody to teach us about this, because Israel has always been interesting because it's pretty polarizing. And I've always been very curious, but I've always been too scared to have any sort of guest on that has an opinion on Israel. I need a third party. I need a, because if you're too into Israel, maybe you're rosing it up. And if you're too opposed to Israel, there's a lot of things that could go on there. And so I've always been too scared to chase it down, but it is something that I've always wanted to know more about.
Yeah. Well, Netanyahu is very much on the expand, type of camp. But it is worth noting that that's not like a monolithic view in Israel or anything. Like the opposition left-wing party did win, and that's not necessarily their point of view on the situation.
I see.
So,
yeah. So there's a lot of people there that have the attitude of live and let live with Palestine and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think to some extent it is the leadership and the politics that, I mean, it's kind of like here. A lot of pandering happens to, relatively small groups of people in this country who happen to live in, electorally important places.
And people who show up to vote,
And yeah, more so that probably.
Yeah.
The voters, well,
Yeah, it's not too different from in the news right now. They're trying to either block or push through voting by mail because they're thinking that it'll change everything,
Yeah, which I don't know. I think Trump is kind of in a tough position with vote by mail because, if he does pass it, then, as he correctly pointed out, Republicans will have a very hard time in elections going forward. And if he doesn't, well, this election in particular is going to be difficult because who's going to stay home? Old people, which is his constituency. So my prediction, you heard it here first, is that the only way for the GOP to handle this is by just going whole hog with voter suppression. They have to make it very, very difficult for anyone to vote in the November election.
I'm thinking I was automatically thinking that we were going to go to this vote by mail. So let's put
no way.
Let's put $5 on it.
Okay, $5.
Yeah, but $5.
Republicans will never pass vote by mail. They will fight it to their dying breath.
Well, I know you're smarter about this stuff than I am, so I'm ready to lose that $5. But for the fun of it, I'm going to put that $5 up anyway.